Alex, I got to tell you about this experiment I ran. Uh, I spent 1 hour and was able to schedule 10 social posts and got the most traction on my LinkedIn than I've gotten in the last 5 years. I got to tell you about this tool. It's called.
Join us for Impact Live 2024 in Hartford, Connecticut this October 14th through the 16th. Over 3 days, business owners, CEOs, and marketing and sales leaders will learn proven strategies to drive business growth. Attend expert-led sessions on marketing, sales, leadership, and AI, and get a chance to network with industry pros just like yourself. Discover how companies like yours are dominating their markets. Secure your spot at impactplus.com/impact-5. And for all of our Endless Customers listeners, we have an exclusive discount code that'll save you $100. So when you're on the checkout page, just enter the code ECPOD100 in all caps for $100 off. We'll see you there at Impact Live 2024 up in Hartford, October 14th through the 16th. Welcome back to Endless Customers, where we teach you how to earn trust and win more business in the age of AI. I'm Alex Winter, your host, and today we are joined by Brian Casey, who is a head coach and trainer here at Impact. Brian, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Alex. It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back, man. I love having you on the show. We always have great conversations. This is a fun one today. I heard that you did an experiment with OpusClip, and I'm excited to talk about this because you know we love AI and all the different tools that are coming out, but specifically for, I guess personally for me, we use OpusClip here at Impact. We used it to edit the show, to help with social media clips and a lot of different facets. So I'm kind of nerdy with it, but I know this is fresh for you. This is something new, a new experiment that you did. So I'm curious to see what your take is and what your perspective is. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you discuss a little bit about your experiment and what happened.
I had an hour, and then I was like, what could I do with this hour that would be beneficial for me on a personal level, that would be beneficial for Impact in terms of presenting me as a coach in an authoritative manner. And I had a couple of these episodes that we had filmed, and the long forms work really great. Anytime that I share them on my personal social media, they do pretty well. And there's this tool, OpusClip, and you guys use it. I've heard about it. I got a free trial with it, so I had like 7 days to play around with this tool. I took the two videos, the long form videos that you guys edited and did everything all great with, and put them in there, and it popped out between the two videos something like 20, 30 shorts.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I could put out on YouTube. I could put them on Instagram. I'd put them out on LinkedIn. And from those two long form videos, I did 10. So I created 10 shorts and scheduled them to go out over the course of 2 weeks. Because I'm not very consistent publishing on LinkedIn. I was like, well, let's be consistent for 2 weeks. Let's see how this works, and let's see what type of an impact this has, and if this would be worthwhile for me to actually coach someone to do or not.
Very cool. And just a little background, Brian is a very busy guy. He has a lot of clients, and he doesn't necessarily have a lot of free time. So the 1 hour that you did have using a free trial, you managed to get 10 clips, and you are going to space them out over 2 weeks on LinkedIn just to see, like a social experiment, see how it would go. And I'm curious, this is really cool that you did this, first of all, but how did it go? What happened on LinkedIn? Was their engagement? What did that look like?
So there was actually a ton of engagement. I think just in general, short form video performs really well on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. Like, that's just content that people like. I pulled up the analytics of just one of them, and this is not like the highest performing one by any means. I think the thing that's interesting about LinkedIn is you somewhat just create this lookalike audience. So people that have similar mindset to you, or that have a similar role, or that care about similar things, that is the audience that's connected with you. I don't have like a big LinkedIn following or anything like that. I have like 1,000-ish people that are connected with me. But like,
prior to this, how much are you on LinkedIn? I think we're similar. We're like, I use LinkedIn, but I'm not posting every day by any means. So like, what was before you did this? Were you posting a lot, or what was that cadence looking like?
No, like I probably posted like once every month or so. And it's when there was something, an inspiration like just came to mind. But Nothing strategic, nothing structural, nothing from a consistent cadence standpoint before doing this experiment for 2 weeks.
Nice. And again, it comes back to the timepiece. You know, if you're a sales professional, if you're a coach, a trainer, if you're a business person and you don't have a lot of time, it can be difficult to find the time to post and to come up with something creative and something engaging and then actually get it together and then post it. Like there's a process to it, but that's the beauty of some of these AI tools is it helps you speed up and maximize your time. So you did exactly that. You posted over these 2 weeks and you were saying that the results, what was the one post that you had pulled up? What were the results looking like?
Yeah, so there's like one post. This is, I would call it like an average post of them. It's not the best performing one. It's not the least performing one. 126 views on it. 100 of them were unique. And this was a 30-second clip. Like it was played for like 29 minutes.
Wow.
And the cool thing is like on LinkedIn, you can see who views it by demographics. And so it's like marketing specialist, website manager, executive director, salesperson, founder. If I were to want to go and prospect, that's exactly who I would want to be reaching out to anyways. And it's just the network that I've created and the network that largely everybody else has probably created. It's just like-minded individuals that already exist in your network.
That is really, really cool. And it's relevant people that are watching it. So you're attracting more of the exact people that you want, which is great. So what was the experience like? Because I know you as a coach and you're an excellent coach. You know a ton about marketing and about sales and about implementing They Ask You Answer successfully, but you're not necessarily a video editor or a video professional by any means. So what was it like using the tool as a non-video professional that's for video?
Yeah, for me, it was really intuitive. So there was a point where I could just insert a video. It automatically created these short clips for me, and it gave me a score in terms of how well they thought it would do on social media. And they looked at things like virality. They looked at like the topic that I was covering, and they put together a score to basically say these are your top performers. So that made it really easy for me to know where to focus. I think the most difficult part for me as someone who had literally never used the tool before was understanding where to start and end the clip to make sure that if someone saw it in isolation, it would make sense. It would have like standalone context. Um, and I don't think the tool natively did that at 100 out of 100 level. And there were a couple things that I wanted to do for my own sake. It automatically does captions for you, but I say and I don't necessarily want the to show up in the caption. So I remove the from the actual captions that occur on the screen. But those 10 shorts that I did, I created all of them and scheduled them out for LinkedIn in that hour block that I had allocated. I was very cognizant of sticking to that hour block to say like what is possible for me to do in this time frame.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So in 1 hour, you scheduled 2 weeks worth of content. That's pretty impressive. It really
Yeah.
is. Now, granted, we should like put an asterisk here for people listening and watching that you have been on the show with us, so you already had these long form pieces of content to use as the basis to chop these things up and then have these different pieces of content to post. But I'm also curious. So I want to go back quickly to Opus. So I'm going to get a little nerdy here because we use this on a daily. The scoring for Opus is really cool. So like they give you all these different clips. You put the long form piece in, it spits back all these different rankings of like here A plus B, this at like the different levels of it and the score. Did you find them accurate? Like the ones that were ranked high, did you feel like they were pretty accurate? Like as far as these are good clips and I would agree with it, or did you find some like differences between like the score was high, but maybe you didn't think it was as great of a clip?
I would say like out of a scale of 0 to 100, it's like an 80 to an 85 in terms of how valuable I thought it was.
Wow,
Um,
that's great.
I think there's some like natively biased components. Like if you mention AI, they're like, this clip's going to go viral because you're talking about AI. And it's like, well, yeah, it might not actually be an inherently valuable clip. I just said AI in it. And that might inflate the ratings. Outside of that, I thought it was largely very useful.
Nice, nice. I found too, and I think Austin. I don't want to speak for Austin here in studio, but we both have found that they are pretty accurate as far as the scoring goes, and it's not perfect by any means, but it definitely gets you there a lot faster than if you had to manually go through and watch all this stuff and try to rank it yourself. And you mentioned something else too that I thought was really interesting. You had talked about like the clipping of it, where like it might start mid sentence or it might start in certain places. That's something that we've struggled with too. But there's a feature for us video folks where you can export out of OpusClip. So if you might have a hard time in OpusClip trying to get it perfectly dialed timestamp wise, where it's gonna like start at the beginning of a sentence and end like succinctly. So we'll export it and you can bring them right into Premiere Pro or whatever editing software that you're using, and then you can manually adjust some of that as well.
Yeah. And for me, I didn't do any of that. And the threshold of which video quality has to be for a personal LinkedIn, and which is what I imagine most people that are listening are going to have a pretty low threshold that they have to meet. And so, yeah, you can take this full bore with Impact Social Media and take it into a different tool. And what I've found from like the every person type of user is like the tool was good enough and functional enough for me to be able to take clips that are super usable that I would feel comfortable on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram as shorts, as standalone shorts without me doing editing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think for people that aren't video professionals, it gives you the ability to create this content. And I think more importantly, you're the most important piece. The messaging and what you're saying to build trust and to do all the things we talk about and they ask you answer, that's more important than the technical. If the lighting is this and if the framing, and like obviously those things do matter, but I hear what you're saying. And I think it's a good point for listeners and for people out there to hear that it doesn't have to be this perfect Hollywood production. It gives you the power to create this content and get it out there and to meet people where they are, which is what we're all trying to do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
very cool. So I want to ask about the captions too, because it's, again, we were talking about this earlier today, Austin and I, where the captions are either at the bottom or in the middle of the screen, and sometimes it will like pick up words like or filler words too. Did you find it easy to be able to edit and to move things around in there and to like adjust it?
Yeah. And you're going to have to correct me from the technical standpoint, but I think there's multiple ways that you can take out something from the transcript. You can clip a piece out of the video, which also removes it out of the transcript, or you can just take it out of the actual written transcript. The thing I did initially was I cut out the piece, and then it had this weird jump where I was talking and then it would jump forward a little bit. And it was very clear to me as a person who would be watching it. Um, but then I found how you could actually just remove something from the actual copy itself. And then it was perfect. And that happened maybe like 5 to 10% of the time that I wanted to actually take something out and it was mostly like filler words.
Yeah, it's marginal. So there are ways to text edit. It's so cool that in an hour, you sound very well versed in this already, which is cool that you figured so much out in such a short time. It's impressive. But there are ways that you can. Basically, what it does is it picks up the audio waveforms and it converts it to text. So it transcribes it, and then you can actually use the transcription to edit. So like you can, if you don't like a sentence, you don't like a word, you literally can like highlight it, hit delete, and then it makes the edit for you, which is really cool. And it's not perfect all the time, but it's the technology is pretty fascinating with what it can do. So my next question for you, right? How would you use this? Like this is your first time doing it with this experiment. It sounds like it went really well. One, are you going to keep doing this as you move forward? And two, if you are, what would you recommend for other professionals out there to maybe do the same thing, or what would you recommend for them to do as well?
Yeah, I would say depending on your role, this would go from anywhere from being like something to play around with to something that's an absolute necessity. So if you're in sales, uh, your job is to highlight the problems that you solve, to appear as someone who is going to be a guide throughout this entire process. This is a no-brainer for you. You could very easily improve your presence on LinkedIn, which depending on what type of industry you're in, could be your primary spot. You could also do the same thing on YouTube, on Instagram, which kind of covers the entire gamut of where your audience might live online from a social standpoint. So I think it's critical if you're in a role where your job is to grow business. If you're in like a back end role, like play around with it, but I don't know if it's mission critical for you. For me, I find myself somewhere in between. There's a function of my role that's sales. There's a function in my role that's more delivery of services. And either way, I want to be known for certain things on that platform. And with the hour that I spent, that was probably the biggest single like jump in activity count on my profile in the last 6 years.
Wow. And I think it's low cost of entry. I mean, it's a free trial. It's an hour of your time. I feel like everyone should be able to figure out how to, in their busy schedule, find some time to do that and experiment and see what's up. And I think too, you made a good point about there's an authority piece to this, right? As you start to post this on LinkedIn and you start to have videos coming out more regularly, people are starting to see it more regularly. It plays into the authority piece in the sense that like it establishes you as a credible, as a credible sales professional or as a credible coach or whatever it is that you're doing. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we'd all prefer that someone is coming to us and saying, "Hey, I heard you," or "I saw you, and I want to work with you." And that could be, depending on where you're at as a business or as a salesperson, that could be a pie in the sky idea. For others, like that is the reality. And so it's, could we all imagine ourselves being closer to that reality versus feeling like we have to constantly chase people, like we have to convince people to work with us? If they've seen us in this light where we're exerting the authority that they otherwise might not be able to see and believe for themselves, it's a totally different dynamic.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So I have a question too. I'm curious. I love your experiment, but as a coach, you work with a lot of clients that have videographers and video professionals on their team that maybe you helped put them in a position there, or were already existing. But the question I have is, do they use OpusClip, or do you have any stories maybe you could share of teams you work with that are using it to their advantage as well?
Yeah. So I gave a little bit of a presentation of this on stage at Chicago, and I had so many people come up to me and said, "Tell me more about that
This is at Impact Live Chicago.
at Impact Live in Chicago."
Okay.
And so there's a lot of the videographers that I work with and that I coach that were at the event that started using it like that next week.
Oh wow.
And I think the biggest thing for them is it's a time savings, and it takes social media from being this other part-time job to being something that you can capitalize on the work that you've already done without a massive time investment, while also focusing on an area that otherwise would probably fall to the wayside.
Yeah. And everything comes back down to time because time is money. So anything that you can do to reduce some of that time, especially when you already have this content that's made, you have long form content that's already there, to be able to repurpose it and squeeze more juice out of something, that's amazing. That's the dream scenario. Any other data or any under analytics that you want to share with us from your experiment?
I think the holistic, there was 10 posts or something. Um, Impressions don't mean much if you're not in the way of creating conversations. Uh, but if you were to, I think I mentioned it, but the salient point here is that 2 week time span where I was able to consistently publish, which is a big factor, and just capitalize on the work that was already done using OpusClip, was the most traction that I got in the last 6 years on LinkedIn. And if LinkedIn prospecting or LinkedIn was a big part of how I imagined my audience would find me or how I would find them, this is a total no brainer, even at the cost of entry of not being the free trial, because I'm pretty sure it's a pretty cheap tool, even if you're paying for it.
Yeah, it is. I think Austin, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it $20 a month? Is that right? 20 to 30. They have different plans, but it's low cost, especially for businesses. Yeah, and it's a great way to speed up the process and to get more juice out of your content for sure. All right, so Brian, I have one more question that I have to ask, and this is just really because we shoot the show here. We have the production team, we have cameras, we have the whole setup. We invested into this as a company and as an organization, but maybe not every company can do that or has a studio or has a videographer on staff. But does that mean that they can't do this? Or like, what would you recommend for people that maybe don't necessarily have like the video background that we have, but want to start creating content and want to start using OpusClip?
I mean, I think one of the biggest things that is a reality of vertical video is people with their phones just doing a selfie type video performs really well. There's a certain level of believability. There's a certain level of just humanity that's brought into something that's not overly manicured. And with like natural light sources like windows, like anybody could do it. And not that this was an issue for me, but when I think about one of the potential issues with OpusClip is cropping things vertically that were filmed in horizontal. You doing a cell phone video totally takes that out of the equation. And again, that threshold for quality is surprisingly low in terms of what the market will allow, what could go viral. I mean, uh, it's it's such a no-brainer to use your phone, and it's good quality video too. The video and the audio quality is going to be super passable, just shot with an iPhone or with an Android.
Oh, it's crazy how far the technology has come in such a short time, and what we have in our pocket now, it can basically do what our cameras do here. These cameras shoot in 4K at 100 megabytes per second. My cell phone shoots 4K. I think it's like 80 megabytes per second, but I mean it's pretty darn close. So, and I think too, to your point, the aspect ratio, right? So if you're shooting horizontal versus vertical, sometimes cropping can be a problem. But if you're shooting on your phone, it's already in vertical. So between your phone, which is in your pocket, and this thing called Google and YouTube, you should be able to create some pretty cool video content and then use OpusClip. And I'm pretty sure that there's an app from OpusClip that you can download to your phone directly, so you can work on it on off of your phone as well. So there's really no excuse, it sounds like, is what you're saying.
I don't see one.
I think a recurring theme that we keep saying about AI on the show is that you just need to get your hands dirty. You got to get in there and try it out and see if it works for your industry, your workflow, and what you're trying to do. And hopefully it does. And if it doesn't, that's okay too, but at least you tried. So that way you know.
Yeah. And this is a really refined use case versus saying like go spend an hour at ChatGPT, where it's like
So
open Pandora's box. I could go in any which direction. It's like
yeah.
there's a very specific use case for this. So it makes it really easy to focus, which is really nice.
Yeah, and this doesn't just necessarily have to be for social. You can use this on your website. You can use this on a ton of places. So it really just depends on what your business is doing, what platforms work best for your business. Yeah, very cool. Any closing thoughts? Anything our listeners should know before we wrap up here, Bri?
I think you said it, but like ultimately, like there is no excuse. It's a very cheap, sometimes free tool, depending on if you can get a trial. Everybody has the ability to record or shoot a video that would work for it, and it does the work for you in terms of telling you what clips to use. There's very little manual processes associated with it, and I mean, how many companies out there just don't have video on their website?
Yeah,
Right?
a
Like
lot. There's a lot. So,
there's
still
a
to this day,
lot.
surprisingly, which is shocking to me. But
If this is a tool that can very easily help you to do that, and it's not the perfect, long form video that's shot in a studio that'll eventually be on your site, but it gets you above the ground zero, you're inherently better off.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. Something is better than nothing. And Austin and I have been using this tool on a regular basis to the point where just in 6 months, the updates and the changes that have happened to optimize it and to make it better has been pretty impressive. And I'm sure in 6 months from now, it'll be even better than what it is today. So that's something that's really cool and fascinating too, is that the technology is moving at a breakneck pace, which is exciting.
Yeah. We're using the worst version of it today.
That's right. Well, Brian, thank you for being on the show. It's great talking with you as always.
Yeah. See you guys next time.
Definitely. And for everybody out there watching and listening, this is Endless Customers. I'm Alex Winter. Go check out OpusClip.